So have you ever been in a restaurant or a friend's house and wondered, why the hell are you decanting wine? Why are you decanting some of the wines but not all of the wines? Well, aside from personal preference, you would decant for kind of two general reasons. And the first is if you have a young wine. A young wine sometimes needs to be woken up, it needs to be jolted. When you decant, you're actually aerating the wine, you're waking the wine up, and you're helping jumpstart everything. If you've ever had that wine where you've thought, yeah, what the heck, there's nothing going on here, usually a decant can be pretty helpful. Now, decanting, you don't need to decant it into a decanter. If you don't have a decanter at home, but you have a water pitcher, that works. If you have another empty bottle of wine, that works as well. Basically, what you want to do is take the wine from this vessel, pour it into another vessel just to get the interaction with air, and then again, you can pour it back in. That's usually enough for young wines. Okay, the other reason that you would decant wine is because you have an older bottle of wine. Now, if you have ever been at a restaurant, been with your friends, you yourself have been the one that takes your old bottle of wine and you're so excited about it, and you're showing your friends or the servers, but there's like this tendency, people are so excited that they do this, right? Well, you don't see it here, but what happens in the bottle, and I have a clear one here for you, filled with sand. When you shake the bottle, you're basically doing this to all this sediment that's inside the bottle. Now, sand is heavier than the sediment that you find in a bottle of wine, so while this drops pretty quickly to the bottom of the bottle, that sediment will actually stay afloat in there. Sediment has this grainy, sand-like quality to it. So how do you prevent that from happening? Well, the idea is with an old bottle of wine that you want to keep it, if it has been sitting like this for a long time, and let's say you work in a restaurant, or you're at a restaurant, you've ordered an old bottle of wine, you want the server or the sommelier to present it in almost the exact position that it has been aged in. If you are going to a restaurant and you want to bring an older bottle of wine, I would actually stand it up and keep it still for like 2 to 3 days. And what's going to happen is all that sediment will inevitably do this, but then after 2 to 3 days, it just slowly drops down. And how you decant these wines, very different than how you would decant a young wine. A young wine you can literally just upend. The more interaction, there's no sediment, the more interaction with oxygen, the better. With a older wine, let's see, I wanted to use a decanter and then I broke my decanter, so we're gonna go with this. I'm gonna use a bowl. And this actually will be helpful for this in particular, that you figure that we're gonna kind of scoot this along, only because sand has this, yeah, okay, it's weighted. So you want to take a flashlight or a candle of some sort, and you really want to place your light. If this is your decanter, you want to place your light right here and then start looking through the bottle, and all of a sudden you're going to see the light coming through the bottle. And then, obviously not with a clear glass bottle, right? But with your red bottle of wine, you'll start to notice that there's a little bit of sediment there. And what you're going to want to do is just basically very gently pour that wine out. Even that's a little fast, but you just want to, it's like peeing, really. You want that sound going, right? And then as you start to get towards the end, you might actually start noticing, I'm doing this for dramatic effect, all of a sudden the sediment starts to come up. Once the sediment hits kind of right before right at they call it the shoulder of the bottle, that's when you kind of want to stop. And you've decanted well if you've got, I don't know, maybe about that much wine left. Sometimes you can't help it, your leftover wine is going to be there. Also, just like with a young wine, this does help aerate it, can help wake up an older wine. Imagine sitting and watching a movie with your grandparents. They fall asleep almost immediately. You kind of have to gently wake them up. Old wines kind of fall into that category. This takes a little bit of practice, by the way, the decanting. The unfortunate thing about showing you how to decant is this kind of is like that scene in Ghost where he's just behind her, helping her, make the clay. Like, it's really hard to show you how to do it in real time, unless you just have to try it for yourself. So it is that slowly tilting over, finding where the light is right at the shoulder of the wine. And then you want to see the light reflected in the bottle, and you're just kind of move that bottle until you'll start to see just a little bit of particulate or sediment floating, and then you're just slowly pouring it out. This gets easier with time. I hope this has helped you with why to decant wine, the basics of how to decant wine, and Godspeed.